And now we are delving into the next chapter, which starts from the discussion that was happening in the previous fourth chapter. Here we have the readers, Ludmila and the reader, who are the only ones who want to read and continue the story. But when the reader comes to the Lataria and asks where is the other parts, she says that that's enough material to discuss, but he says that he and the Lataria or Ludmila they don't want to discuss. So when he understood that they are not going to see the whole book, he discusses with Ludmila that they should go to the publishing house and because they are owing them a satisfaction. And at this moment I could fully resonate with them because I felt like I'm not respected because as a reader I'm really interested with what is going to happen next. Why is it abrupted? So I get their point because there was no pleasure. But that gave me a point, like maybe these abrupted stories made us think about the flow of the story, not about the ending. So then he talks to Ludmila, and they explain the mystery that they talk about the mystery behind these pages, and Ludmila notices that she allowed her hopes to rise when she discovered that there is a continuation of the previous novel. So again, at this part, we can see as intense interest of the reader to Ludmila, because he is really interested about Ludmila's taste and agrees with everything that she says. So when he says, "Let's go to the publishing house," she refuses. She says that there is no need for both of us to go there, and that hurts his feelings because he was excited to discover these novels and search for their continuation together. So she did it because of her principle. We understand that she has boundary line. The boundary on one side are those who make books, and on the other side those who read them. And she is strict, and she doesn't want to get out of these lines. We will discover it later why she is so strict to this. So she rejects his appointment. So when he asks, like, "What about me?" she says, "Decide for yourself," which shows us her stubborn character. And also I felt like she is a little bit detached from him. She has no interest for him, like but maybe she has, but because we don't know her feelings. But from perspective of the reader, I would also be hurt. So when he comes to the publishing house, he meets a little man whom he introduces his problem. He's searching for manuscript, and this person is really overloaded, and he apologizes to tell that there are a lot of work they have to do because there is such a chaos in the publishing house. So he was like pushed to the administration and then pushed to the production, and he finally found Mr. Kadigvana, who was the main person who had to handle all the problems that readers came up with. So he was the person, as I understood, who was responsible for every trick, the most complex job, and had to deal with every questions that appeared also at the moment when the reader wanted to give him his introduce him his problem, he was interrupted with like arriving problems like scheduling the next 5 years of Dostoevsky, changing Piotr in the book to Piotr, and he listened to everybody. And I noticed that this person is really responsible. He is really patient, and I admired him because he does the all dirty work. So, but I had a question: why he is like? Why he is waiting and working there if he is not reading the books? Then the reader said that he makes a deep analysis of this person because he wanted to have a talk with him, and I saw the reader's character more deeply because he describes him as a person who comes from a world in which they still read books where you encounter, and he explains why he considered him a little man, chunked and bent, not because he's a little man, but because he seemed to have emerged from a book. Like that was really touchy for me. So. And then he starts the dialogue with him and introduces himself as just a reader. So.
Yes, and then he was in the line waiting for his time to come, and the time has come, and he says, "I'm just a reader. I'm not an author." And when that little person heard these words, he approached him immediately, dropping all his work back. He kind of stopped being a professional. He just came to him and said, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad you are just a reader." And then the real dialogue starts. It says he let himself be carried away and he forgets his other tasks. He takes you aside, and then they start talking. And he says, "I've been working for so many years, and people come to me with their problems, with the different unfinished books. And when I start finding the continuation of some novels, I just do it very quickly, and I don't even read. I read so many books, but at the same time, I don't read any." And he compares his reading now with his reading in the past, in the childhood. And he says, "Just in a while, I just had a dream about me when I'm in a little shop and I'm reading a book there, and I open the pages of the book and I see my own writings there." And it was just his dream. And he says, "When I was a child, I used to read not that many books, but I used to read them with passion. You know, when you're reading just for your pleasure." And I think this lines kind of tells us the main reason of this whole book. It's when you read a book just for your pleasure. You're not trying to find something. You're not trying to help someone. You're just reading it for yourself. And then he says, one of the books I read when I was a boy, a cheap edition, the pages tattered, the black and white engravings all colored by me with crayons. As a boy, in order to read, I should hide in the chicken coop." And then he tells you that even now, he reads some things, but he doesn't have so many time. So if he finds something interesting, he just puts it aside and say, "I will read it when I will get older." And then you start explaining to him your whole problem, and he says, "Oh, this problem with the publishers. Recently, they have this problem when they start something to write and they don't finish it due to different problems." And in other words, you just understand that the writings now are very different from the writings in the past when novels were all finished. But now they are kind of not finished. And he says, "A publishing house is a fragile organism, dear sir. If at any point something goes askew, then the disorder spreads. Chaos opens beneath our feet. Forgive me, won't you? When I think about it, I have an attack of vertigo." So here you see that because of this, all of this unfinished books, he's starting losing his mind. And I even thought that he is not a real person. We can clearly see that he's just a character of the story. And then you ask him about your book, and in this case, you is the reader, and we are observing him. And he says, "Oh, are you talking about the book, which is this, that, and that?" And he can't even remember the language. He can't even remember the author. And the you reader starts giving some hints. He says, "Polish. No, not Polish, indeed. Cimmerian. Not Cimmerian. Does it call this? No, it doesn't call this." And eventually he says, yes, it's from Uku Ahti. This is the author of the book. And you say, so, of course, as a reader, you want to continue reading this book. And he says, there was a problem with the author of the book because there was a person whose name was... And he says, there was an author, his name was Hermes Marana, and he kind of told us that he knows Cimmerian, and he started translating the novel. And he translated it just with the same names of characters. But when everything was published and everything was ready, we discovered that he didn't know any Cimmerian. He translated the book from another French book, and he didn't change the name of the characters, he just changed the plot of the story. And he got his money, he was paid for that, but the translation was a fake one. And then he says, and he brings him the book. In this book, the story, another story which has the name of Lux Down in the Gathering Shadow. So at this point, I thought, okay, probably till the rest of the book, we will be reading different stories with different names, with zero connection to each other, because it's another story, right? Like sixth story, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a completely different thing. So you just take the novel, but you cannot go somewhere with the novel. You have to read it there, and you just sit there. Somebody calls that person, he goes away, and at this moment I felt the silence, the real silence of when you start reading something, because that character disappears, and we know that he's not a real person. He just disappears, and the reader, the main character, I think, he just sits there, starts reading, and discovers that it's a completely different story.
Yes, so also we are introduced to the Marana, who had letters, who left his letters to Kadikvana. This was mentioned not for a long time, but this was a hint to the next chapters. So now we are starting. Now we are next introduced to the Looks Down in the Gathering Shadow.